If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
All right, we've done all of the breakdowns. We've done all of the analysis. It is time. It's time to go on record for how we think this series will shake out. The Knicks have not won a playoff series in 2020 since 2013. That's when Carmelo Anthony led the Knicks past the Boston Celtics in Game 6. So I asked this question first, Tommy. The Knicks will win this series if what happens?
Yeah, I'm going to go with my and I think we know what we're going to get from Brunson and Hart and IQ and Grimes to a lesser extent. And Randall's obviously still a question mark, but assuming he plays, we know what he can bring to the table. I think that they need RJ Barrett to be the X factor and positively tip the scales of balance. Two reasons I say that. Defensively, Knicks are going to try to hide Brunson on Isaac Okoro, as we talked about. This gives Brunson a little bit an opportunity to help off drivers and maybe draw some offensive fouls, but also keep him out of foul trouble. And he's just not as talented a defender. He's the weakest defender of the Knicks starting five. So you put him on the guy that Cleveland's going to stick in the corner. That means that Barrett's going to have to switch on to most likely Darius Garland, the primary guns. We know how good of a player Garland is. Obviously Mitchell gets most of the highlights, but Garland is one of the up and coming guards in the NBA. Made an All-Star team, age 23. One of the only player in the league with 20 plus points, 7 assists, and shooting over 40% from 3-point land. He's a problem, especially when he gets going. So RJ is going to need to play the best, and we've knocked RJ for his inconsistent defensive approach throughout the season. They need him locked in on the defensive end. Just as importantly, on the offensive end, when the Knicks have the ball, Okoro is going to be guarding Jalen Brunson, which means a cross match is going to be either Mitchell or Garland on RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett has been ice cold from three-point territory, shooting 22% of the last 15 games. Confidence is really at an all-time low, but he's done a better job of driving to the basket, getting into the paint, creating scoring opportunities for himself and his others. Cavs are going to dare him to shoot the threes. Does he take the first couple threes he gets? If he misses them, does he continue to chuck them up, or does he use that space to kind of use it as a runway to get into the paint and create scoring opportunities? Also, I'll be interested to see if they feed RJ in the low post. We've seen him be effective with his back to the basket at times this season. Ideally, what you want Barrett to do, if he makes the threes, that's great. I don't want him taking too many. I want him getting to the basket and putting pressure on the defense, having those bigs, drawing internally. He can kick it out to Brunson. He can kick it out to Grimes. We know about his trigger. But just as importantly, try to draw some fouls on who's ever guarding, be it Mitchell, be it if it's Darius Garland. Get him the ball. And again, as we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about, if you get Darius Garland out of the game, now Ricky Rubio comes in. And he's been awful offensively. Solid veteran. He's not going to turn the ball over a ton.
He's killed the Knicks in his career, so we know he can be dangerous.
He's had some big spots against the Knicks, but he's shooting 70%. Again, he's just, made his season debut a few months ago, working his way back from a torn ACL. Shooting sub 30%, 40% from the floor, sub 30% from downtown, 20%, I believe, over the last 2 months with Cleveland. So you're going to dare, if he beats you, he beats you. But either way, you'll happily trade. You want to see Garland go off the floor and Ricky Rubio come in. If Mitchell gets in foul trouble, LeVert, obviously LeVert's going to be the other guy too, but he can't play the full 40 minutes. And so those kind of things that I think RJ can really impact the game on both ends of the floor. He's had a disappointing season. There's some talk that he will likely be on the block because he's not a great fit in between, Brunson and Randall, and what's his future? We'll see how it goes. All that being said, he can completely flip the script and rewrite his 2022-2023 season story. So, that's kind of where I land on just RJ Barrett being, an essential cog on both ends of the floor. Again, they don't need him to be perfect. They don't need him to average 35 on 50% shooting. They just need him to contribute consistently on both ends of the floor. 4 games. They need 4 good games. They don't need 7 consecutive good games. They need him to be better more often than not, because if he does that, he puts pressure on Cavs defensively and makes everyone's job easier offensively, and that can kind of swing the balance of power in the series, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we did our mailbag episode, and we got a question from CP, the franchise of all people, on from Knicks Fan TV, and he asked, who's the X factor for the Knicks coming this playoff time. We probably did that. In fact, we did it around the All-Star break, so it was February, and I said RJ Barrett. I think that for the Knicks to go far, the Knicks are going to need a real third scorer. And now, look, Emmanuel Quickley's played so great, like maybe he's that guy. But especially in the starting lineup, I think that they're going to need someone else to provide some real offense. And RJ is the guy with the highest ceiling of the guys in the starting lineup. It's not to say Quentin Grimes can't have big games. We know he can, but we know RJ can take over games offensively, and he's playing the right way. So it's going to be important for him, I think, not to have his mind made up when he goes to the basket. He needs to be aggressive, but he needs to have a plan, because those are 2 twin towers up there. You can't just say, I can just go out there and kind of just throw up any shot and think that, that's going to work out for him. Like, he's got to go out there with a plan, saying, okay, I'm going to show the ball. And if they're up there, then I'm going to dish it off to Mitch. I'm going to go hard to the basket, roll right through their chest and draw a foul. What we don't want to see is RJ kind of floating in there, throwing up, left-handed, right-handed crap, and shots that have no chance of going in. If he goes in aggressive, hard, and with a plan in mind, I think that he could have a good series, because I agree. I think the matchups are going to be extremely favorable for him offensively. So he has to have a big series. For me, the Knicks will win this series if the bench dominates the Cavs bench. In many ways, RJ is a big thing, but I really think that may be where the series is won for the Knicks. Because when I look at this matchup, I think the Knicks will have to kind of play even with the stars, or close to even as they can. The Knicks' big advantage to me is that they have a much better bench than the Cavs bench. So much so that I think that JD Bickerstaff may end up playing a lot of his starters north of 40 minutes. But in that time, when the Knicks bench gets that Cavs bench one-on-one, solo dolo, they gotta destroy them. They have to dominate that matchup. The Knicks have a really solid 4 to 5 man lineup back there, if you include McBride, that has played really great since the Josh Hart trade. They gotta dominate those minutes. They're Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, Jetty Osman. Like these are guys are not guys that should be able to outplay Quickly and Toppin and Josh Hart and Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, the Knicks are going to need their bench to play the way they've played all season. In that Hawks series, one of the problems was, besides really the first 2 games, the Knicks bench never really got going. And that was one of their big advantages in that season, was that the Knicks had this great bench. The Hawks bench outplayed the Knicks badly in the last 3 games, and that's why the Knicks were so dominated in those games. This cannot happen this time around. The Knicks bench is going to have to show up big. I think that they will, but I think that is going to be a big part in this series if the Knicks bench shows up the way they've played all season. In that Hawks series, one of the problems was, besides really the first 2 games, the Knicks bench never really got going, and that was one of their big advantages in that season, was that the Knicks had this great bench. The Hawks bench outplayed the Knicks badly in the last 3 games, and that's why the Knicks were so dominated in those games. This cannot happen this time around. The Knicks bench is going to have to show up big. I think that they will, but I think that is going to be a big part in this series if the Knicks bench shows up.
I totally agree. That was actually my second kind of deciding factor, was the bench. And point, the Knicks bench second unit can't just outplay the Cavs. They need to thoroughly dominate the start of the second quarter, that first 6 minutes of the second quarter, that first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Not by a couple points, not hang close. Josh Hart, they have the 6th man of the year in Emmanuel Quickly. Josh Hart's, starter on half the other teams in the NBA. Isaiah Hartenstein has played at an incredibly high level on both ends of the floor for the past 2 months. Can they get some dunks for Obi Toppin in transition, easy baskets? Because it's going to be a slog to score against this Cavs team. They make it up, and they're going to make it difficult for you. Can we know Josh Hart is going to grab some defensive rebounds and push the ball up the floor in transition? Is he going to find RJ Barrett cutting the rim? And again, that's RJ Barrett time too. He's usually the lone starter that plays with those other 4 second unit guys. Does Deuce McBride, make an impact defensively? Those are things that the Knicks are going to need to do in order to win this game and the series.
Let's talk about the worst case scenario here. Knicks will lose this series if what happens?
if they play to the way the Cavs want to play. Cavs hold when Cavs hold opponents under 100 points this season, they're 23-1. They 20, just the fact that they held an opponent under 100 points 24 times this season is remarkable. And as we know in today's NBA, no other team in the NBA had more than 16 such games. The Celtics held an opponent under 100 points 16 times. They were second in the league. Cavs number one at 24 times and 23 in one of those contests, as you might expect. So if they can slow the pace down, have the Knicks, struggled, befuddled, on the offensive end. That's obviously where they make their bread and why they've been one of the best teams in the league. And then ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the final 5 minutes. Jalen Brunson has been the Knicks' best free agent signing in 2 decades plus, arguably in the history of the franchise, because of how well he's played during the regular season. If he wants to elevate his status even higher and have a statue built of this man, he needs to continue that in the postseason, because we've seen all the great players of the Knicks past. Yes, the regular season numbers are cool, but Patrick Ewing is a hero and a legend now because of how well he played against the Heat and the Pacers, and in his postseason appearances. You're wearing a Clyde jersey for 36, 17, and 9. We know about Willis Reed. We know about the legendary Knicks players. And obviously Jalen Brunson's nowhere near those guys. But if he wants to kind of elevate his status to that higher level, and because that's kind of, what's going to be the separating factor, obviously. He has an opportunity to do so, and he's going to have an opportunity to do so with the game on the line. We know Randall struggles in the final 5 minutes. Historically through his career, he did not play well in the postseason. IQ hopefully will knock down some shots. Grimes been hit or miss. What Josh Hart is going to be. There's going to be possessions when it's a 1-possession game, 2-possession game, one way or the other, where the Knicks need a bucket, and they're going to ask Jalen Brunson to do it. He's done it so far this season, one of the best clutch players in the league. But now, the things get ratcheted up. We've seen him do it in the postseason, 11 months ago, 12 months ago, last April, when he sent Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz home almost by himself over those first 3 games. See if he can do it again. But if he doesn't, then the Knicks are going to have a very difficult time scoring in those final few minutes. The game's probably going to go down to crunch time. I think we can feel confident that Mitchell is going to make quite a few clutch baskets of his own. Garland, Mobley, they're going to find a way to get buckets. Can Brunson answer? If he doesn't, Knicks will probably be on the short end of the stick.
I'll say the Knicks will lose, and I will take something from one of my cousins who knows so much about basketball, my cousin James. He always said, talking about the Jordan era, that one of the things that was guaranteed during that Jordan era and why the Bulls won so much was that Jordan was always going to outplay your star, whether it was Patrick Ewing, whether it was Reggie Miller, whether it was whoever it was in that Eastern Conference or in the finals, whether it's Barkley, whether it's Sean Kemp, whether it's Magic Johnson. Jordan always outplayed your star. Clyde Drexler, yes, maybe the most evident example. Jordan always outplayed your star, and he always outplayed them when it mattered most in the clutch. The Knicks will lose this series if the Cavs stars significantly outplay the Knicks stars when it matters most. So you talk about those clutch situations, late games, because there's going to be close games. Whether you think it's Cavs in 5, like Jackson said, or whether you think it's Knicks in 5, like some other Knicks fans may be saying, they're going to be close games. These games will be decided at the end by these star players making plays late. And if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are hitting big shot after big shot and they can't answer it with shots from Brunson and shots from Randall, Knicks will lose. It's that simple. If the Cavs and Donovan Mitchell outplay the Knicks stars, they're going home. And that's really what's going to come down to. So the Knicks can't have, obviously, how Julius Randle played 2 years ago. Like that is they're dead on arrival if they get that Julius Randle. He has to play pretty much to the standard he played for the majority of this season, where he's lined up for another All-NBA selection. Jalen Brunson's going to have to be the closer, which he's been for the majority of this season. If that doesn't happen and Garland and Donovan Mitchell outplay those guys, Knicks will lose.
Yeah, You can make a. I think we're speaking the same language,
Yeah.
and the reality is they're going to be close games, exactly like you said. I think you can predict the Cavs in 5 or the Knicks or whatever, but I think everybody would be surprised if there are blowouts consistently game. I think it's going to come down to the final 5 minutes, and that's when you make your money.
All right, prediction time. Who wins this series and why, Tommy?
I'm fascinated by the series, and just because it's on so many levels, and just just a few numbers here. They say styles make fights. Cavs, number 1 in the league in defensive efficiency. I talked about keeping teams under 100 points. They ranked first in the NBA in opponents' points per game. The only team in the NBA to keep teams under 107 points. Only team first in defensive efficiency. Only team to keep their opponents under 110 points per 100 possessions. The Knicks, on the other hand, third in the NBA in offensive efficiency. It's very rare that you get a first round series where you get a top 3 offense against the top 3 defense. Sometimes you get in the Eastern Conference in a conference finals, or sometimes in the second round. But to get 2 teams matched up that are literally the very top of the league in each respective metric is really, really interesting. And one of the reasons Cleveland's so effective is because they force turnovers. 17.7 turnovers forced. That's third most in the NBA. One of the reasons the Knicks are so effective offensively is because they limit their turnovers. Commit just 13 turnovers a game, third fewest in the NBA. A lot of teams ask, a lot of folks ask, how can the Knicks be that good offensively in terms of defensive efficiency when they shoot, middle of the pack? They're 28th in the league in field goal percentage. They're 19th in the league in 3-point percentage. 2 primary reasons: they take care of the basketball, as I just mentioned, and they rebound the hell out of the basketball, especially on the offensive end. Where Mitchell and Stein, Hart, all contribute. Especially Mitch Robinson led the league in offensive rebounds a season per game. Whereas the Cavs have trouble, even despite their Twin Tower look. They're near the bottom of the league, especially over the second half of the season in terms of rebound. So there's just so many things kind of going back and forth. I think it'll be a great series. I think it'll be an extended series. I think it goes 7 games, and I'm going to pick the Knicks to beat the Cavs in Cleveland in that game.
There you
7.
go.
Another factor, as you know, Cavs have been very good at home, 31-10 at home, 5th most home wins in the league. The Knicks have been very, very good on the road, 24-17. The Bucks have 2 more wins than the Knicks. The Knicks basically tied for second in terms of most road wins this season. It's impossible not to watch the Cavs this season and not respect, what they bring to the table. And so obviously that this is in no way discounting that the series will be a very tough series for the Knicks. But it's so impossible to have watched this Knicks team from October April 14th this morning and the end of the regular season and not recognize that there's something special going on here. This is a talented, gritty, gutty group. And one of the things I've been most impressed by them is their ability to kind of overcome the odds, when things look like they're in the wrong direction. So if the Knicks can get to a game 7, understand home teams are highly, are usually trends towards the home team. I think that's a game New York can win. So I'm going to go on the record and say New York in 7.
There you go. New York in 7. So I think this is going to be a tough series. I think this is going to be a physical series. I think that this is going to be a series that's going to have multiple swings. But I'm going to agree with my guy, Tommy. I have the Knicks. I have them in the exact same games. I have them in 7 games in this series. I think the Knicks win game 1, catch Cleveland, not sleeping, but catch Cleveland trying to feel their way through the playoffs. And then the Knicks punch them in the mouth and they get a steal in game 1. I think that this is going to be a series where both teams win multiple games on the road. This is how this is going to go with the Knicks. The Knicks have been a great road team at home. They've gotten better, especially since Josh Hart trade, but they've been very iffy. And for as great as the Garden crowd is, for whatever reason, people like playing there. People play there. They feel comfortable there. The Knicks have not made it an uncomfortable place to play. So I expect Mitchell to have a heater in one of these games. I expect Garland to have a heater in one of those games. I think the Knicks will actually end up losing 2 road games potentially. But I think the Knicks get 2 road games as well. I think they win game 1 at home. I think they win game 7 on the road. So I think you got bookend wins for the Knicks. You figure out where they win the rest of the games in there in between. But I think the Knicks win this series because I think that the Knicks will have an answer for Cleveland in these late game situations with Jalen Brunson. I think that's the difference. That's the difference we've seen all season, is that last season they lost so many games in which they had big leads or games in which they were right there at the end, but they couldn't execute. And the biggest reason was they did not have a point guard. The difference this time around is that they do. When they played against the Hawks in that series earlier 2 years ago, they did not have a point guard. And when they needed to close the game in game one, they could not do it. Hawks had a closer. Hawks had a star point guard. They took game one, and they kind of took the series by winning that game. Sometimes in a series, you win more than one game with a certain win. I felt like the Hawks won more than one game when they beat the Knicks in game one. Things are so much different now because of Brunson. I think that the Knicks will have a statement win in game one, and that'll set the tone for this series. I think will be not as easy as the Hawks have with the Knicks. That's not going to happen. But I think it'll make the Cavs understand, okay, this is going to be a real fight. I think it goes all the way to the end. But Jalen Brunson being the difference, I got the Knicks in 7.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to me, that's kind of what I'm pinning my faith in is Jalen Brunson. I've seen enough from this kid over the past 6 months to say, I don't think there's anything he could do that would surprise me at this point. And going into a game 7 in Cleveland against an extremely talented backcourt. You need all those other things to get there, to get to a one possession game in the fourth quarter of a game 7. You need all those other things. You need Grimes to play really well, knock down shots, defend Mitchell, at least, limit him to a certain extent. IQ, you need to, do what he does. Josh Hart's going to do what he does. Hopefully Randall, you get, a healthier version of Randall, relative healthy version of Randall. That's close to the 25-5 that we've seen all season. But you need all those things to get you there. And then you need something else to push you over the hump. And that's Jalen Brunson. The way he's played, the ability to come through in the clutch, he can do things, he can get buckets against great defenses because he doesn't need a lot of action. He doesn't need, 3 pin down screens to get an open shot. He can take his man, isolate him, go left, right, get into the lane, fade away, draw foul, get to the free throw line. We know he has the stones to make big shots. And if you're a Knicks fan, that's what you're hoping for. It's just at least being in a position where you can let your most important player take you home.
Jalen Brunson may not be the most accomplished player in this series, but he's the most accomplished postseason player in this series. So that's what I'm leaning on. Donovan Mitchell is a great player, but he's never been to the Western Conference Finals. He hasn't had the kind of series. He's had good series, he's had big series, but he hasn't had the kind of series where they've won like Jalen Brunson had last season. So when I'm thinking about how you win the postseason, you need postseason players. I think Jalen Brunson is a postseason guy. Knicks in 7. And as one great man once said,
what's so good about Cleveland?
We'll see. We'll see what is so good about Cleveland. I think Jalen Brunson is going to have an answer for them. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.